Welcome to Global Village. We are airing today from JBS Canada Center in Brooks. We are very honored to have our co-host, Mr. Levi, who is co-hosting with the program today and moving forward. We also very honored to have two great friends, Mr. Logan, who is a peace officer from the city of Brooks. Welcome to the program, Logan.
Thank you for having me.
And Mitkesa, who is a Oromo leader from the Ethiopian nation in Africa. He's Ethiopian Canadian from Oromo region. Welcome to the program.
Having me.
Okay, Mr. Logan, you want to tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, I've actually been in Brooks now for the last 3 years. I'm originally from Ontario. Grew up in a small town called Cornwall, about a population 46,000. I guess that's not really small. And then in 2010 I moved to Ottawa. Lived there for about 5 years in the nation's capital. Loved it, great place. And then cards just happened to play themselves right, and I was able to come out to Brooks, and it's been great ever since. So.
Wow. So do you say where from Ontario?
So originally in Ontario from a city called Cornwall, about 46,000 people. And then in 2010 I moved to Ottawa.
Okay.
And then about 5 years later came here. Yeah.
So you came prior to Lisa, or you came after Lisa, who was the your
I
manager?
actually came just as she was about to leave for her first time. So she was my manager for the first 3 months of being here.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, because she came from Ontario also.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my partner Shaz, who you probably know,
Okay.
actually grew up with him, best friends. And it was
Oh.
partially why I'm here is because of him. So.
Oh, okay, and he's
We've-
from Ontario also.
Oh yeah, we grew up together,
Wow.
kids, friends, the whole bit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, went to high school together, college together, worked at Canadian Tire together, did all
Wow.
kinds of stuff together. So yeah.
Wow, that's very good. And you end up both of you in Brooks.
Yes, and now we both live here in Brooks and we do the same job. So
Amazing.
it's good. Yep.
Wow, that's very good. Yeah.
That is cool. That's a
That
long
is-
partnership.
Yes, that's sometimes it's a little too long. It feels like sometimes we both butt heads once in a while, but
Yeah.
no, it's good. It's good.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you need friction to make fire, right?
Well, you know what? You can only be friends for so long before things start to overload a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
you need to let it out.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah.
100%. All right, well, yeah, thank you, Logan,
thanks
and
for having me.
thank you, Ahmed, for having me on again. As well as you, Medexa. I'm going to nail this, Medexa. So, Medexa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Mideksa Guta. I'm from Ethiopia, particularly from Oromo region. I studied veterinary medicine back home for 6 years, and then I worked 3 years. After that, I got scholarship to study master in public health in France, Paris, between 2010 and 2012. After that, I got a chance to come to Canada in 2012, and I worked at different jobs as any immigrant. Currently, I have been working for Government of Canada in Canadian Food Inspection Agency as meat inspector. In addition to my job, I like volunteering. I volunteer in BCIS in Oromo community. Previously, I volunteered in a nursing home in Calgary, and also I volunteered in paid adoption center in Calgary. In the future, I would like to have my own veterinary clinic when I get my vet's license.
Cool.
Wow.
What's the process? So you already had a veterinarian license, but now you have to get one in Canada?
In Canada, I'm a foreign graduate. In order to get a veterinary license here, I need to do a lot of upgradings. I have to pass a lot of exams. I need to pass like 3 main exams. It is time consuming, plus it is costly. It might cost me like 15,000 minimum to pass those exams and get the license.
Yeah, that is very expensive. It sounds like you have a heck of a resume, though, and I'm sure that challenge won't be anything for you.
Wow, that's good. So you graduated from France then?
I'm a master in public health in France. DVM, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. I did it back home. 6 years study.
Wow, that's you don't speak French, do you?
I speak basic
bit.
French.
Okay.
My course was in English basically. When I was studying a master in public health, the course was in English. So I speak the basic one, the basic French, I mean.
I would definitely encourage you to continue getting your credentials in Canadian one, regardless of how much it will cost, because at the end of the day, that will benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, thank you. That's my plan in the future, just
Yeah.
to have veterinary clinic.
Yeah.
I must get the license. To get the license, I have to spend a lot of time studying, plus I have to spend money.
Yeah, money, yeah, but still that comes afterward once you graduate and have your own credentials in Canada.
Yes.
And that helps you to have a veterinary here. Maybe both Levi and Logan will bring their
Pets.
stuff, dogs
Yeah.
and
A lot of animals in this.
animals.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Okay, Logan. What is the difference between the peace officer and community officer in Brooks?
So, the big difference between a bylaw officer
Yeah.
and our community peace officers is
Yeah.
a bylaw officer, they primarily enforce municipal bylaws. So laws set down by the city in whichever they're from. Whereas the community peace officer, they're hired by the city, but largely in part governed by the province. And the difference, really big difference is a community peace officer or a peace officer will enforce municipal bylaws, but also provincial statutes. So they also do provincial laws as well. Whereas a bylaw officer just does municipal.
Okay.
So where in my case, I was originally hired on as a bylaw officer. I'm still a bylaw officer,
Yeah.
but I've received additional training that allows me to work as a community peace officer level 2.
Okay.
Still a bylaw officer, job title is still a bylaw officer, but it gives us that extra bit of room to work with, so I can do provincial legislation as well, which ultimately helps the community more, because that allows us to do more for the community. So,
Wow.
yeah, biggest
That's-
difference.
Wow. That's good. That's
Yes.
well, life is a learning process. So I just
Yes,
I learned something today.
In Alberta, coming from Ontario, law enforcement in Alberta, I find is taken a lot more seriously. There's a lot more avenues that you can go through in Alberta to essentially climb up that chain.
Yeah.
You know, a police officer tends to be your highest level of policing, but law enforcement in general is big.
Yeah.
You know, anything from Canada Border Services Agency, sheriff's departments, all different kinds of departments fall under law enforcement and all provide a certain level of policing. So,
Yeah, but compared to Ontario, I used to live in Ontario. They do have, apart from the local municipality and the city, they do still have OPP, which is
Yes.
provincial.
yes, so
Here you don't have OPP.
we don't
similar to-
have a provincial police service
Yeah.
in Alberta. In fact, the only provinces to actually have their own provincial police service is Ontario,
Quebec.
and then Newfoundland have the Newfoundland Constabulary,
Oh.
which I don't know if they're 100% confirmed as a provincial police service, but the biggest ones are Quebec and Ontario.
Ontario. Okay.
So,
No, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so then the local municipal, you guys kind of take over the role that provincial government would play.
to an extent. So the biggest thing that community peace officers and bylaw officers will do in their counties, their municipalities, or their cities, they focus on a lot of the bylaw stuff. They'll focus on, and again, depending on the city and municipality, will determine what the level of enforcement needs are. In Brooks, our community peace officers enforce the Traffic Safety Act, so they do a lot of speeding, distracted driving, Class 7s, that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, we're also doing municipal bylaws. So we're dealing with animal control, we're dealing with unsightly properties, noise disturbances, anything like that. So we cover a lot of ground, but at the same time, it also alleviates the pressure on the RCMP, so to speak, so that they don't have to deal with the unsightly calls. They don't have to deal with the animal control complaints that allow them to focus on the more important things.
Wow.
Those are important too, but I'm sure they're not always a pleasure to deal with some of those things.
You know what? When you're in law enforcement, you just get used to dealing with those situations. You get thick-skinned pretty fast.
Yeah.
You know, I've probably been called just about everything under the sun. I've been spit at. I've had knives pulled on me. I've had people threaten to kill me.
Wow.
It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You know, and you know what you sign up for when you get into law enforcement, right? You know you're going to be in situations where you're likely to deal with something like that or people like that, right? So, but you know, working in Brooks and coming from Ottawa, yeah, you know, Ottawa is probably 1 million some people to come to a population of about 16,000 people. The culture is very much the same, I find.
Yeah.
You know, Ottawa is very diverse, big melting pot. And then you come to a city like Brooks, it's very much the same thing.
Yeah.
So moving from Ottawa to Brooks was a really easy transition for me. And I think working within such a diverse community and a diverse population, I think is beneficial in my line of work, because we get to deal with all different kinds of ethnicities, all different kinds of people, which makes the job interesting, because every time you deal with someone, anytime you interact with someone, it's always a different interaction. Everyone to a certain point needs a certain kind of interaction from us. And let me tell you, I can play a wicked game of charades now. Getting to talk with your hands and talking with your body language more so than your mouth, just so that you try and get across the message you're trying to send. So working here has been phenomenal. So.
Well, and Medexa, you're originally from Ethiopia. Can you tell us a little bit about Ethiopia? Location, language, kind of social, so on?
Well, Ethiopia is located in east part of Africa. It is highly populated, and it is oldest country, and also it is the only uncolonized country in Africa. It has a different culture, and also it has different ethnic groups, like 84 ethnic groups in Ethiopia. Among these 84 ethnic groups, Oromo is the largest single ethnic group. Like we said before, the total population of Canada is about 36 million,
Yeah.
but the Oromo people is about 40 million. It's a large ethnic group in that country. And most GDP of Ethiopia comes from this region. It's not only the population, the resources that the country uses mostly comes from there. 60% of the GDP of the country comes from there. Even if every resource is from Oromia region, the people themselves are not benefited because the people, Oromo people, do not have political power. Economically, socially, there is marginalization.
So yeah, you said it was a ethnic group. So is it like a province, or is it like an area of land that you guys like, and you have, but you don't have any representation for that area of land, or is it just a culture? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, things are very, very complicated. Small minor groups, they use different techniques. They get weapons from other countries, foreign countries, and they oppress the major ethnic groups. That's the way they are governing there. For symbol, there are some Oromo leaders there, but still they are not free to make a decision because they don't have freedom themselves. Those who in power, representing Oromo, they don't have real power. The real power is in other small ethnic group.
What are some of the resources that come out of that area?
Mostly the country depend on the agriculture, the agricultural products. Also, it comes from the Oromia region, mainly coffee. We export coffee. Live animals comes from Oromia region mostly, because the region has forests. The region has even mines, different mines like gold. Different natural resources are from there. Because the region is rich of a kind of natural resources, even a lot of rivers, a lot of forests. Live animals comes from Oromo region of Ethiopia.
Yeah, no, that is a very huge area and large ethnic group in Ethiopia. But how long have you been in Canada then? Since 2012?
It has been, it's about 6 years, about 3 years in 3 years and a half in Calgary, 2 years and a half in Brooks. Total is about 6 years since I have been in Canada.
No, that's good, and I think that's one of the reasons Logan dealing with different ethnic groups sometimes gets very culture-wise. Sometimes it gets tough. So one of the reasons that we have invited together with you, Dr. Metkissa, is moving forward is somebody that you can be able to liaise with
Yes. Absolutely.
and get the brain behind, and then we'll be able to give you cultural wise, not only Oromia, but all Africans
Yeah.
are the same. All Africans have the same culture, regardless of you are east or west or
Yep.
north or south. So that's having said. The difference between the sheriffs now and bylaws and the RCMP is very clear.
Yeah, so Alberta has the Sheriff's Department, which are hired and work for the government of Alberta, work for the province. And their level of enforcement needs are a bit different than, say, bylaw. In some cases, very similar to the RCMP. I don't want to speak too much on behalf of the sheriffs, but you know, I do know they look after the courts, so they provide service for the court systems.
Yeah.
They do a lot of prisoner transportation, so essentially they're dealing with the people that the RCMP are locking up. They're transporting them from their cases to the jailhouse and whatnot. They also have an integrated traffic unit, which they work on the highways. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the sheriffs on the highways.
Yeah.
And they also have a lot of other areas that they focus on as well. In some cases, they may overlap with the RCMP a bit. Even on the traffic side of things, you know, as community peace officers, some of their stuff might overlap with us, but they're very much a separate entity themselves within the province. So.
But as a peace officer or community peace officer, you cannot arrest someone. Is that right?
Yeah. So as a community peace officer, or even as a bylaw officer working with those community peace officer level 2s, we have the ability to make arrests depending on the offense. So a lot of our provincial statutes, the Traffic Safety Act, within the Traffic Safety Act, you have arrest provisions. So essentially, certain offenses under the Traffic Safety Act will allow us, as a peace officer, to make an arrest. And then, of course, other legislation, other provincial acts will also have specific arrest provisions in them. You know, whether it's the Liquor and Gaming Act, you know, peace officers, we can also arrest people for being under the influence in a public place. We can arrest for stuff like that.
Wow.
And then as well, we can step outside of our role as a peace officer and use Section 494 of the Criminal Code, which is a citizen's right to arrest. We also can do that as well. And then very small provisions in the criminal code for certain things that we can arrest for. You know, for example, failure to provide identification in the course of an investigation. If someone's failing to give us identification after we've requested it, we do have the right to place those individuals under arrest until we further find out who they are. So there is a lot of things that we do have arrest powers for. Obviously, policing agencies have a lot more authorities to arrest. We just have to know what authorities we have and how to work within them. But we definitely can arrest. So.
Okay.
So it's more, excuse me, each section of law enforcement, it's more like you take care of a certain set of laws, opposed to, like, I always felt that maybe the ticketing was a responsibility of one and then arrest would be something different. But it's more just the range of laws that you guys take care of.
It can sometimes be difficult to try and educate the public on what we do because it's so encompassed. You know, there's so many laws within Canada, there's so many provincial laws, and it can sometimes be difficult to try and explain all of those things as a whole and try to compare other agencies and what it is that we do compared to other agencies. But in most cases, a lot of the stuff that the RCMP can do provincially, community peace officers can do as well. You know, whether it's Trespass to Premises Act, we can place someone under arrest who's trespassing, all those kinds of things. So we do work in conjunction with the RCMP on a lot of issues, but again, each county, municipality, city you work for tend to have their focus areas. So Brooks, we might do something differently than, you know, the city of Leduc. City of Leduc might have their officers focusing on different areas. So it really all depends on where our program is working and what it is that is expected of us within our municipalities.
Yeah. There's a lot to
there's
take
a lot
in.
into it.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. It sounds. I'm getting education here. I can't
Yeah.
imagine coming from another country in order to integrate into our society. It would be a very difficult thing. How did you find like integration, and what progress do you see in integration?
To me, I lived in Paris, France, being a student. As you know, student life is very easy to learn, to do whatever you want, because student life is quite different from actual resident, yeah? So I had experience in Paris, France, so when I moved to Canada, everything was smooth to me. The only problem I got is weather. A little bit is very challenging, really. It is very cold, you know. Sometimes I assume, like, you know, I used to live, okay, in hot area. I consider that like oven. And then now I start to live in a fridge, you know. Yeah, it's a huge challenging, the weather. Integration to the people, it is very simple, like I said, because I lived in Paris as a student, and that makes my life very, very easy. The second challenge maybe is the way we search the job. It's quite different from what we used to know back home.
How did it work back home?
Usually there will be ad, and then you apply. If somebody referred you, it's not acceptable. It's considered as favoritism. And here, you have to know somebody in order to get a job.
It helps. That's why I'm here. I know Ahmed.
Yeah, exactly. You know, here, you know, the more you know people, the more you get a chance to be employed or to be hired. So at the very beginning, I didn't know this thing, and I was just always looking on the website, struggling. Nobody gave me a call or something like that. But gradually, I knew that I made a mistake, and then I closed to friends, and then I got a job that I want to do.
Yeah, but two things comes here, this society. One is a volunteering, so the community will get to know you. And then number two is a reference, because no one will like to hire somebody if they don't know who reference that person is, because they cannot hire. Because if you say you can do A, B, C, well, Levi has to know me to say, you know what, I know this gentleman, he's a nice guy, and Jetra, and he can do, or Logan. But if you don't have the reference, it will be very difficult for that employer even to consider to call you.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that. The thing is, when I got scholarship, I did by myself. I applied by myself. Nobody helped me out. And I got accepted in France. When I applied to come to Canada, I did by myself. I applied online, and then I made an interview over the phone, and then I got here.
Yeah, but
now
they go
the
by
job
merit.
is quite different.
But
you
the
know?
Canada immigration, when when they bring somebody from overseas, they go by merits. Your education is a merit, for example. If you're young, so they have their own system where somebody will be qualified. If you have the master's degree, the country will benefit out of it. So they go by different program with the Canada immigration when they want to bring immigrants from outside.
Yes,
Unless somebody is a refugee, but if you are an immigrant, they go by those merits that if you complete those numbers, they will add up and they will say, yes, you can come. So that is, but in terms of the job, is the employer has the right to hire whoever they want. They see it fit for the production or that. But I'm glad now you are with CIFA, and you will be a huge benefit not only for the CFI, for also the community, like such as for Logan, for the program. What advantage you think we have? What advantage did the diverse population like ours in Brooks County of Neol you think has in the 21st century? Coming from Ontario.
I think it's important to, how do I put this? I think it's important that we live in a very diverse and inclusive community.
Yeah.
The world is, it's changing, you know, we have to learn to change with the times. And I think to provide a place where someone can come and feel welcomed and feel included and at home, I think is very important. On my side of the fence, on the law enforcement side of things, it can be a challenge at times because, you know, as we try to break down stereotypes with other members of different kind of communities, different ethnicities, we find ourselves sometimes running into situations where, you know, someone might be coming from a place where law enforcement really isn't looked upon, or they may not have law enforcement, or there might be a certain sense of fear that comes along with the uniform. A lot of the times when we're interacting with people, I think they have a hard time distinguishing between the uniforms, and they just see one. And sometimes people can be quite fearful of that, just simply because of, you know, where they've come from. So it's really important for us in law enforcement to try and break down those stereotypes and try to encourage people to come forward when they have a problem, to cooperate when there's an issue. You know, one of the old adverbs, policing pretty much started in England. And Sir Robert Peel, the gentleman who pretty well got the ball rolling in all this, one of his principles were the public are the police and the police are the public. You know, our job can only go so far. And at the end of the day, at some point, you need to have a certain level of cooperation from the community. So it's important for us to bridge those gaps between ourselves and the community to ensure that when we're dealing with a situation with someone from a different background, that they feel safe and comfortable with us, that we're not there for any malintended purposes. And one thing, you know, the RCMP around here is great for bringing in diverse members. And we, in our department, in the Municipal Enforcement Department, we do a lot of education within the new Canadian population to try and teach them, you know, one, all the different types of laws that we have within Canada and within Alberta. And then also at the same time, it kind of helps break down that gap and make them comfortable to be able to come to us. I can't tell you how many times we've gone to a presentation at JBS or at the Adult Learning Center and then see those very same people out on the road the next day. And now that level of communication is there. We can actually talk to one another. You know, they're not shy, they're not fearful of coming to us. They can come to us and talk to us freely, which is what we want. We want that. But we are very cognizant of the fact that people do come from communities who are either fearful of us or just the way they do things, especially with some of the women culture. You know, sometimes when we're talking to a female from a different ethnicity, a lot of the times we might get some negative feedback because they don't feel comfortable talking to us without their husband. So those are the kinds of things that we work with on a daily basis and try to break down, again, those negative stereotypes and bridge those gaps. It's very important when you work in a culture like we do here, a melting pot like we have, to bridge those gaps and encourage people to come to us for anything. You know, a lot of times people get fearful when dealing with us that it's always a negative thing. Well, just because you're having a conversation with someone in a uniform doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. Unfortunately, most of the time when people do talk to us, it's in a negative connotation, whether it's a traffic stop or there's a problem with their yard or just a one-on-one conversation. And it's important to know that just because we're talking to you doesn't mean you're in trouble all the time. Sometimes we just want to have a conversation. We want to get to know one another. It's important.
I get nervous too, even if I haven't done anything, yeah. I promise. But I think just in my experience, you always treat the officer with respect and kindness, yep. And that's always been paid back to me.
And it's something as simple as that. You think it's simple, but it goes a long way. The way in which you approach law enforcement yep. will, in a lot of cases, determine how we approach you, and that goes a long way.
Well, I hope those are the audience listening, and I think they definitely will benefit. And for that simple reason, maybe in future, if you have any cultural issues, Dr. Mitkessa is here. But thank you very much for both of us coming to Global Village today. And we will honor to have you again and again next time. And we will have far more discussion. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yes,
really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, this is the end of Global Village. We would like to thank City of Brooks for providing the JBS Canada Center today. And also we would like to thank Mr. Logan and Dr. Mitkessa for taking the time joining us today, Global Village. And definitely I would like to also thank and welcome my good friend, Mr. Levi, who is co-hosting the program. Levi, it's all yours to close the program.
Hey, thank you very much, guys, for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who put it together. And thank you very much for having me, Mr. Kasim. I appreciate it.
That's the end of program of Global Village. This is where the East meets the West. Have a nice day and God bless you all.
Thank you very much.